how to study and know the voice in your most holy word. We pray also for the teachers, that they have a ready recollection of the things they have prepared for us this morning. We also pray, Lord, that you will help us find a cure that will eliminate the coronavirus from the world, because it's out of good one right now. Lord, forgive us of our sins also, Lord, please. Guide our footsteps. This is yes, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Boo. How's everyone? You're who? Blessed. Well, that's a good answer. Aren't we all blessed to be able to get up and get out this morning? To get up is a blessing. And to be able to get out and be here, to be here is a great blessing. It's good to be with you. Jeff is not with us today. I thought it's because he was taking Hannah to Montgomery, but apparently I was wrong about that theory, because Hannah is the only one of her family that's here. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Talkative is behind Papa. I didn't see him. Sorry about that, Austin. I didn't see you hiding back there. So your folks are gone. They've left us, and your dad is leaving me to conduct the class. I want this class to be a little different than I normally teach a class. Normally I get up here and you just stare at me while I lecture for 45 minutes. And I wouldn't mind doing that again this morning, but you're going to have to hear me again in a few minutes. So I'd like you to kind of participate. In fact, the nature of our discussion, I think, will lend itself to that. I want to talk to you about this congregation, about this church. And I say that because this is where we are. And this is where we're members, and this is where we belong. Now, if I were somewhere else, perhaps we'd be talking about that church. But this is where we are. So we're talking about this congregation. You know, the word church is used in a number of ways, but a couple of particular ways in the New Testament. There's the church generally. Jesus talked about it in Matthew 16. I will build my church. But then there's the church locally, like the church of God at Corinth, that we read about in the letters that Paul wrote to that congregation, or the churches of Galatia. There are congregations individually that were spoken of, written about, written to in the New Testament. So the word church is used in the universal sense. It's also used in the local sense. So when I talk to you this morning about the church, I mean the local church, and I in particular mean the Villa Rica congregation. And I want to talk to you about that for a moment. There was an article that appeared in the church bulletin, and the preacher was going over it, proofreading it, and he noticed when the secretary had typed up the article, the title of the article was "The Church Was Untied." And of course he recognized she had a typographical error, and he pointed it out to her. But it's interesting when you think about the church untied versus the church united. And the difference is the placing of the I. And as the preacher was pointing out to the secretary, you know, I matter. And the I and its placement matters. And so it is with this church. I matter. You matter. We all matter. And the placing of the I makes all the difference. Abraham Lincoln said something one time. He said, "I like to see a man proud of the place in which he is living. And I like to see a man live so his place will be proud of him." I just want to challenge your thought process this morning. And I don't mean this in a negative biblical way, but as we typically use the expression, are you proud to be a member of this congregation? Do you suppose this congregation is proud to have you as a member? Sometimes I don't want to think about it that way. I'm like, nah, don't ask that second question. I'm really glad to be a member of the church. Just don't ask me what I think of you. You might not like the answer I'm going to give. So that's kind of where we come from sometimes. So we're afraid, to venture into that area. But wouldn't it be grand if everyone in the congregation was enthusiastically engaged with the congregation? When we think about being a member of the church, there's a lot of changing attitudes today. And a lot of course, young people in particular have kind of gone in this direction. I don't have to be a member of any particular congregation. I can be a member of the church at large. I can visit here, visit there, go there, do this, do that. Or maybe just stay in the woods and go hunting or go fishing on the lake. And I can still worship God there, and so I can still be a member of the church generally, and I don't have to be a member of the church congregationally or locally. That's not important. There's just a lot of problem with that. First of all, it's an unscriptural idea. Secondly, there's just a practical problem with that. The church out there somewhere cannot provide certain basic functions that you need. For example, I said, we're blessed, aren't we, to get up this morning. What did you say in your typical way? We're blessed to be here, right? Is that what you said? See, I agree with that sentiment. The highlight of my week is worship service. Being with my brethren at church. I look forward to it. Sometimes, I'll be honest with you, on Wednesdays, I'm dragging myself in here. Especially this time of year, it's hot. And I'm walking several miles a day, sometimes running, and it's hard. And I sweat a lot, and I smell bad, and I feel bad, and my head hurts, and I'm dehydrated, and I come dragging in the church building. But as soon as I get here and I see Gilligan walk to the door, and I'm like, oh, there's Gilligan with that funny hairdo. I'm like, somehow, it just brightens my day. I'm like, I'm just glad to see him. Robert. Yeah, it's Gilligan. I remember that yesterday. We were... What?
You got to define which Robert.
Yeah, you got to be more specific, don't you? What we're saying about Robert yesterday, you can blame Robert for anything right here because there's so many of you. Yeah. Anyway, no, really, it does. It makes a big difference when you're able to be here and you have the joy of fellowship. In Acts 42-47, they continue steadfast in the apostle doctrine and in fellowship and in breaking of bread and in prayers. You can't do that in the woods by yourself. You can't do that on the lake. You can't do that at home. You can't do that out there nebulous-wise. You have to be here. You have to be with other Christians in order to enjoy fellowship with one another, to gain strength from edification. What does the word edify mean? Somebody tell me really quick. We use the term all the time. What does it mean? To build up. Something I rarely do. We build up each other, right? And so I'm always generally going in the opposite direction. I'm tearing down, and then I'll let somebody like Brother Tom come along and build you up. But, edifying is something we all desperately need. I can't be edified if I'm not here. The church out there cannot provide me the joy of public worship. I like to sing. And I like to hear other brothers pray. And I like to hear the Word of God read and expounded upon. And I like the acts of worship, giving of our means that we participate in together. I realize I'm not in this struggle by myself. And so I'm able to come here. I'm able to enjoy this public worship service. What a great blessing that is. It builds you up, doesn't it? Makes you feel good. And it does edify us. I remember 1997, I was 31 years old. Man, I was really grown then. I was an old person, I thought. I really lived my life. And it seemed like yesterday, and I was a ways back. That was some time ago. But when I came here, February of 1997, I was a very disheartened individual, very, very discouraged. And mostly because I had this feel sorry for me mentality, and I felt like the world had been mean to me and mistreated me, and woe is me. And there were several members here who, for whatever reason, took it upon themselves to encourage me. And I didn't do anything to motivate them to encourage me. In fact, I did everything to motivate them to give up on me, but they just kept on encouraging me. And after a while, I began to listen to them. I thought, well, they're not just saying it. They actually feel this way. They actually think I'm a good preacher. I don't know why they think that. I know what you think, Robert. But I don't know why they think that, but they thought that, and Robert. I know that they think, well, he's a good guy. He's helping the church here. And I'm like, I don't believe that. And I'm not making this up. I went for several years, really not convinced. I thought these are shallow compliments. These are shallow, hollow, words of comfort because they know I'm depressed or down and out. And they're just telling me this. But after I was told it long enough, and I was able to see long enough, they actually mean that. They actually care about me. They actually want me to succeed because they want to succeed. And they realize that we're all in this thing together. What a difference it made, and how differently I felt, and how much air I felt under my shortened wings. They had been clipped quite a bit, but I was able to fly a little bit, kind of like a turkey, I guess. I wasn't able to fly very well. But I was able to get off the ground at least, and so I felt a little better about myself, and I appreciated that comfort. I can't get that. I can't receive that in the church out there, in the church somewhere. And so the church here provides me with encouragement. Sometimes it's encouragement to just keep on keeping on. There's a lot to discourage us. Take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. But what?
Sure.
But exhort one another. In fact, in Hebrews 10:24, we are to, in verse 25, we are to exhort and encourage one another. So much the more as we see the day approaching. I believe that day, in Hebrews 10:25, was the day of destruction and judgment against the city of Jerusalem that was about to take place. And as you see these terrible things about to take place, you really need to encourage each other more. We're living in some really strange and uncertain times. I really don't know what the future holds. When we started this year, and economy was growing like gangbusters. We were on a trajectory as a nation to finally get an upper hand with China, and things are moving in our direction in that regard. And now suddenly everything is shuffled around, and we don't know where we're going to be. And I have to say, I honestly believe after all the events of the last few months, only God can be credited with these kinds of events. And we can blame this and blame that and blame the other, but we've seen some major upheavals in a number of areas, and I'm not going to go into that. We're not here to talk about that. But you know as well as I do, these are uncertain and unsettling times. We don't know what the next few months or the next few years has in store for us, either as a congregation or as a nation. And so we need to encourage each other. We need to motivate each other. I don't know about you, but if all I heard was what the world was saying to me and what the world was telling me, it would be easy to get beat down and be discouraged and feel like there's no point in going forward. Isn't it nice to have a Meshach and Abednego to go with Shadrach to tell him, hey, let's take a stand on this. Let's don't bow down. Let's keep on keeping on. We need each other. There are a lot of reasons that we could list that remind us that God expects us to be a part of a local congregation. Back in the 19th century, the Restoration cause was growing and spreading across the country, as some historians say, like a wildfire, like a prairie fire. Everywhere you turn, denominational churches are flipping and returning to the original pattern and the ancient order of things. And it was just a tremendous time for the Restoration cause. But again, the evil one is never content when things are going well for God's people. And so he introduces a number of issues. The first of those issues was what's called the American Bible and Missionary Society, which challenged the unity in the ranks among those who were to be members of this restored body of Christ. The Missionary Society has a worthy goal, had a worthy goal, it's still around, has a worthy goal, namely to evangelize the world. And yet there was a lot of question about that, a lot of concern, rightly so, among a lot of elderships in our brotherhood. They're like, well, if we support this missionary tract society, are they not going to start dictating to the local churches what missionary will go where and how long he will stay at a certain location and just all the logistics and ins and outs? And well, yeah, of course they were reassured initially. I know this because I read the Millennial Harbinger. I know the arguments that were made in those days. And there was a back and forth, and there was this idea that, we can do this innocently and there's not going to be any pressure put on the local churches. But as time progressed, there was pressure put on the local churches, and there were demands being made of them. And so a lot of our brethren pushed back on that. And so we understand that's not the way to go. We don't need a parachurch organization to fulfill the Great Commission. The Lord didn't say to the American Christian and Bible Society, go and evangelize the world. He told his people, i.e. the church, to go and evangelize the world. Now you say, well, that's how we do it. The church generally does it. The church generally doesn't do anything. Only the church locally does anything. And so when you think about it, the church locally is the only missionary society God's ever instituted. So how are we going to carry the gospel into all the world if we're not supporting the local church? And we can think about it in other ways as well. But let's just leave it there. I want to move on to something very quickly. 1 Corinthians 12. We're talking about the church locally and how the church works and how the church should encourage itself, motivate itself to do great works, of course. I want to emphasize this morning that every member, every single member of the church is important. We came yesterday, many of us came yesterday for a work day. And it was a good day. It was hot. And so those of us that were working outside, we got hot again. And that was okay. Some of us worked inside. We got a lot done. And I was very pleased with the progress that was made. But I was reminded more than once yesterday, we're not as young as we used to be, some of us. And so we're getting tireder than we used to get. And we were remembering some of the things that we had done in times past. And I remember working with a good friend in the church downstairs. Right after we had finished this auditorium, the basement was not yet completed. And so we had built the wall. Brother Gentry, you helped with that downstairs quite a bit. We erected the walls and made the classrooms and set all that up. And then one Wednesday night, we were offering an invitation, and I see Robert Moore come down the aisle and want to be baptized. I thought, I can't believe that. I really thought the ceiling was going to fall in. I thought, well, he made it all the way down here, and we got him in the baptistry before the thing collapsed. And he obeyed the gospel. And he's like the Energizer Bunny. Immediately, he's like, let's go build that ceiling downstairs. I don't know, big deal. I had to show him quite a bit. He wanted to cut corners a lot. And I had to come back and make sure that we did everything, kept the lines level. And, we didn't get off. Why are you laughing about that? I'm a perfectionist, and everybody that knows me. Anyway, we had a really good time. I cherish, Robert, those memories. I really cherish. It was like, and I remember every day I'm down there and I'm like, this guy's crazy. I'm like, I'm tired. And we got stuff to do, and he just, first thing in the morning, he's downstairs, and we're on the scaffold, and we're moving down the hallway, and we're building all this stuff. And we did all kind of neat things together, but I remember those days. We're putting the building together. And I was reminded of that yesterday. We were here trying to spruce up and put back together and clean up. just how important every single member of this church is. You ever get feeling sorry for yourself and think, well, they don't need me. I don't matter. I'm not that important. In 1 Corinthians 12, Paul said, as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, have been all made to drink into one Spirit. For in fact, the body is not one member, but many. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? If the whole body were an eye, where would be the hearing? And if the whole were hearing, where would be the smelling? But now as God set the members, each one of them in the body, just as he pleased. And if they were all one member, where would the body be? Now, indeed, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the hand to the feet, I have no need of you. No, much rather, those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. You understand the gist of what he's saying here. He's comparing the church to a human body. Now, what part of your body are you willing to get rid of? Well, the fat around my stomach. Okay, fine. But I'm saying, other than the obvious, what hand or what foot or what eye or what ear? I mean, these are basic functions. We have to have them. And so what are you willing to live with that? Paul is saying the same thing about the church locally. How could someone reason, I'm not part of that group, I'm not part of that team, they don't need me for this or that or the other, therefore I'm not needed. We need every single member of the church working at 100% capacity in order to see the church grow. Now, I was just a young man at 31 when I came to Villarick, and there was a decent number of people here then. The numbers grew and grew and grew. I remember, was it 2004, 2005? If you came to this auditorium on Sunday morning, you had a difficult time finding a place to sit down. It's packed in here. We had a lot of people. In fact, we bought the property next door, took out the trees, cleared it out, put gravel down to expand our parking because we were running out of parking space. We didn't know what to do. I remember those days. Those were exciting times. And then things started taking a turn for the worse. In 2010, we had a really bad year. Had a lot of funerals that year. We lost our eldership that year. And that really took the wind out of our sails. We were kind of floundering for a while. But I believe we have found our footing once again. Now, churches locally, if they're healthy, are a lot like the stock market. And I think people need to see the church that way. Rather than saying, well, there was a high point one time in the past, but it never will happen again. We can see that high point and exceed it again. We don't need to think merely in terms of that's the way it was. No, that's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be again with God's help. We'll get there again. We don't need to think about what we did. We need to think about where we are presently and where we need to be going from here. And that's possible if every member steps up and does their part. Just to give you an example, I hope they don't mind me picking on them, but we were here working yesterday, and I noticed the sign in the front of our property here needed to be updated for the peace officers appreciation coming up. So I called the Pettingill. And they saw my number and they ignored it, didn't answer my call. I get that a lot. Anyway, she did call me back, by the way. But isn't it amazing? Have you seen the sign? And we're going to tweak it a little bit today. They're going to make a couple of more changes to it. What an outstanding sign that is. All I do is make a phone call. And just like that, I walked out front, look at what we did. And I said that way, look what we did, because what they are able to accomplish. On Sunday for the Savior, when they bring those cards to us and they provide those lists for us. It's an important service. Amen. And we see those things where they, but everyone taking those lists, taking those cards, following their lead on that. What a difference that makes in the life and the health of the church. Every one of us doing what we can. Sometimes we have to take double duty. I remember reading in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 4, verse 16. It was, Nehemiah said, from that time on, that half of my servants worked at construction, while the other half held the spears, the shield, the bows, and wore armor. And the leaders were behind all the house of Judah. Those who built on the wall, those who carried burdens, loaded themselves, so that with one hand they worked at construction, with the other hand they held a weapon. You got a pickaxe in one hand, and you got a sword in the other hand, and you're going to be ready for whatever the occasion calls for. Sometimes we have to take on double duty to build the wall. But brethren, the wall can be built again. It might have been broken down, but we can rebuild it if we just put our hand to the task. Someone says, I'm only one, but I still am one. I cannot do everything, but I still can do something. Because I cannot do everything, I will not fail to do something that I can do. I can't do everything. I may not be able to lead singing, but I can preach, or maybe I can teach a Bible class, or maybe I could just clean the bathroom facilities, or maybe make sure the doors get locked, or something. Or pick up a card or a tract and hand it to someone, or mail a card that is provided for you. There's something we all can do. I submit this to you. It's not just what we can do. We owe a debt to the local church. We truly owe a debt. We owe a debt of interest, a sense of attachment, a sense of belonging to the local church. Now, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble for saying this. Okay, well, that's fine. I'm used to it. I like to take trips when I can. I like to work hard and play hard. That's my philosophy. Always has been. Work hard, play hard. So when I take time off, I take time off. And for me, taking time off means not being here. I know that sounds terrible to say, but just easier for me to relax my mind if I'm not here. But now, I don't do that as often as I would like. I'll be honest with you. I get tired physically, mentally, spiritually, get drained, and I like to have my battery recharged occasionally. I like to visit other places, hear other preachers. I think all of us need to get out from time to time, venture out, see other places, visit other churches, hear other preachers. They yell at different places than I do. So it's always good to hear someone else yelling at you than the same guy every week, because you have a tendency to tune him out. That's good. It's even healthy. But if you're gone as often as you're here, it really makes it very difficult for you to give your all to the local church. We really need to show our interest and our priority as a member of a particular congregation. And if you're a member here, well, this should be your priority. Not just, I'll be there if I'm not somewhere else. Well, that's nice. And I suppose it's fun to do those kinds of things. But sometimes we just have to grow up and say, well, it's not always about me. It's not what I want. It's what better helps the church. Now, I'm not telling you I'm not going to go fishing in September. Lord willing, the elder let me off. I'm going to take a fishing trip in September, and I won't be here on Sunday. And I feel bad about that already in advance, and it's next month. But sometimes that's okay to do. But I'm not going to make a habit of being gone. I'd rather make a habit of being here. I'd rather you expect to see me when you get here. I like to expect to see you when I get here. And so we're all here, and we're all busy, and we're all pulling our end of the load together. We owe that to the local church. If we're going to receive the joy of fellowship and the joy of worship together, the benefit of being edified and encouraged by one another, supporting each other, carrying the gospel of the world, then we owe it to that local church to strengthen it, build her up. We need to give, and we owe our plans, our dreams for the future of the church. When was the last time you prayed for the church here? You pray the church succeed, that the church grow, that the church do well. You know, we have an important event coming up Tuesday. I have no idea how it's going to turn out. I don't guess any of us do, because we have nothing over which to gauge it. We've never done anything like this before. A peace officer's appreciation dinner or meal or whatever, however we're going to describe it. I don't know can't really come up with a way to adequately say it, but we're going to be honoring peace officers in our area. Something we've never done before. We should have, and I don't think it's a bad thing. And I hope that it sends a very important message to the community. We stand behind law enforcement. We encourage law enforcement. We want to support our local law enforcement. We know they have a very difficult job. I think it's a good thing. But isn't it good that we can send a positive message to the community in doing a gesture like this? I mean, you say, well, are we going to be proselytizing people? They come? Probably not. That's not really the aim. It's not an immediate, let's get someone to sit down and have a Bible study with us. It's more of a general goodwill gesture to the community to let people know we're part of this community and we stand behind what's going on in this community. And I believe in the long term, we will have a more favorable view by members of this community. We need to pray that is the end result. Amen. That God will see what we're doing, bless what we're doing. We're going to be having at the same time the Dorcas ministry, which has been going on for several years now. 5 years. 6 years. Well, I'm getting old. I'm sorry. I can't keep up with it. 6 years. It's a long time. We've fed a lot of people. And we've done a lot of good with our Dorcas program. That'll be going on tomorrow and Tuesday, right here. And so this is a good work in the community. By the way, Tessa did a great job yesterday. After leaving a mess in the hallway, I don't know where she went, but she disappeared for hours. And then she came back and finished and did an outstanding job with that bulletin board. It looks really good. You need to check that out at the end of the breezeway here. What? It's not done. Well, it looks good anyway. And well, it's a work in progress, and that's good. I'm glad you're not finished. We can keep adding to it. Just don't leave your message for them disappeared. I couldn't find you. I thought you'd gone. Thought you got mad at me and left. But anyway, I'm glad she finished what she started yesterday, and it looks really good. And it highlights a lot of what I'm saying here. These are good work. We have a missionary in Guatemala that we're supporting. We need to pray for that man and that work there in Guatemala. We need to expand what we're doing, not just there, but go other places. We need to increase our vision, our dream, our hopes, our prayers for the church. And yeah, we owe this congregation money. And that's a real popular subject. I'm not sure why in the Lord's church it's such an unpopular subject, but it shouldn't be. I mean, for any enterprise to succeed, we have to have money. We have to be able to do certain things. And supporting missionaries, feeding law enforcement, other things requires contributions. Just having a room to sit in with lights and air conditioner, I mean, it takes money to provide this stuff. By the way, I was really encouraged from Ronnie Sr. yesterday. Where did Ronnie get up to? He's hiding somewhere. But anyway, I was out there hiding in the foyer. Okay. You see him out there? He's still hiding. I know you're out there. I think you can hear me. But he was discussing with me and some others yesterday about some options. I'm not going to get all the details, options for the future, but he was letting me know about our debt on our building, how much it has come down, and how quick we are to actually, hopefully in the near future, there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, paying off this debt. What a tremendous blessing that's going to be. Amen. We no longer have to have that albatross around our neck, as it were. I mean, not that it's a bad thing to have a building debt. We have to have a place to meet. But isn't it going to be grand when we no longer have that burden to carry, and we can use those funds for good, worthy causes? We need to start dreaming and planning and thinking about all the way we can reach out in this community and expand the borders of the kingdom. Brethren, that's what God expects from us. Amen. Are we giving as we ought? Hebrews 10:25, the Hebrew writer said, not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another. This is COVID time, and a lot of people are not with us today because they're sick. My daughter is not here today because she has COVID, and she's very sick and not able to be here. And that grieves me. I haven't seen my daughter in over 2 weeks, and haven't seen my grandchildren in over 2 weeks, not those children. And that grieves me. I can't imagine being a grandparent not seeing your grandchildren all the time. I mean, I've gotten spoiled. I'm just going to admit that. I've gotten spoiled, gotten used to that. And when I don't have that, it bothers me. But I miss my daughter, and I miss my son-in-law, and I miss my grandchildren. And I want to see them back here as soon as they are physically able to get back here. Not any sooner than they need to be here. They don't need to spread what they have. Any more than if you came here with the flu, I wouldn't want you to go home if you got the flu. Don't come to church with the flu. Don't come to church with COVID. Don't come to church looking like me if you can help it. But don't come to church if you're going to spread something that don't need to be spread. But if you don't have COVID and you don't have the flu, come to church.
Amen.
Come to church. I have a feeling we go other places. Some don't. Some, out of genuine fear, are not going anywhere. Some are not able to go anywhere. Elderly, those who are infirm, those who have compromised immune systems, really shouldn't be generally traveling about. They shouldn't. Because they could catch COVID or the flu or anything else, and they could die from it. So they have to be extra careful if something like this is going on. We understand that. We all recognize and pray for them. But if you're healthy, nothing wrong with you, come to church. Be regular in your attendance at church. You go other places. You go to restaurants. You go to Walmart and you wear a mask. I don't. I don't wear a mask. I'm a rebel. And I don't wear a mask because I don't feel safe wearing a mask. You may feel safe wearing a mask. I applaud you for wearing a mask. I don't feel safe wearing a mask. I hope you don't judge me for not wearing a mask. I won't breathe on you. I won't cough on you. I'm spitting at you right now. I won't breathe on you or cough on you. But I will try to respect whatever you require of me. But I honestly feel safer without a mask. If you want to wear one, more power to you. I'm happy for you. And you should. It's a choice we all have to make. Come to church. Whatever you have to do, come to church. There's plenty of room, by the way. I'm looking around. A lot of empty pews. And so we could all be here. We could all be sitting down, socially distanced, with mask or not, and we could all be worshiping. We owe that to the local church. At the very least, we owe our bodily presence at the services. There's no reason not to be here. Now, I've said what I think about the local church. I wonder what you think about the local church. What do you think about this congregation? Other than the mentally unstable preacher, what do you think about the church other than that?
I think our future is bright.
I do too.
You mentioned the fact that we all need to be a part of the local church, and that's something I'm glad you're emphasizing because it's not emphasized in our brotherhood as much as it should be. Biblically speaking, Jesus addressed the 7 churches of Asia individually.
He did.
About the importance of each one. But one of the greatest things that we enjoy as a member of the local church is the oversight provided us through and by that congregation.
Absolutely.
I remember in the 50s living in Valdosta, decade of the 50s, and one of our members just quit coming, the family, and his wife. I visited them, and they said, now, no, we're attending, Lowndes County has a lot of congregations. We're attending over Brother Tefteller preacher. We're going there now. They didn't know Brother Tefteller and I ate meals together often at McDonald's. So we were doing that one day, and I said to Brother Gordon, what about that family? Are they doing well? He said, they visited us once. I've never seen them since. I went to visit them, and they told me they attended. Where you preach?
Oh, no.
I said, let's get in our car and go together to see them.
Did you? pulling a fast one like that. If you weren't a member of a particular church, then who's going to be responsible for you?
Who would care for
And
you?
who's going to look out for you? Exactly right. Brother Pettingill, you had something you want to share?
Yes, I like to think of our church as our house of prayer. You know, we come on Sunday mornings, Wednesdays, come to the Lord's house of prayer. I'm reminded when Jesus entered the temple, a lot of times he wasn't treated very nice. It was his house, but he wasn't treated very nice. But he had such an affection, such a passion for the house of prayer that he drove out the money lenders. So I think in my life, I need to have a likewise passion for the house of prayer.
More passion. I think that's a very good thought. And you're kind of stealing my thunder from the sermon I'm going to be preaching, Lord's willing, in the next few minutes. But that's okay. I'm actually glad you said that because it kind of paved the way. I'm going to use the term zeal, but same thing. Zeal or passion for the cause of Christ. We need that. We need more of that in this congregation. I believe the future is bright. And I believe and I hope and pray maybe after this fall and things return to normal, we can see our footing again. And we can get back to the business, the Lord's business, and doing what